The smell of her perfume still lingered in the hallway when I realized something was wrong. Not because she was gone, but because she'd sprayed it twice. Alma never did that. Once meant she was going out. Twice meant she wanted to be remembered. Her phone was charging on the nightstand, screen still lit up from a message I wasn't supposed to see. "You sure he won't come home early?" It wasn't even the question that hurt. It was the timestamp. 10 minutes before she told me, with that tired little sigh, "I just want to be alone tonight." She said it like she was asking for air, like I was suffocating her. And maybe I was. I tend to talk too much when I'm nervous, fill the space so she doesn't drift away in silence. But that night, silence was all I got. I remember standing in the kitchen, her half-finished cup of tea still steaming. The spoon rested against the saucer like she'd just stepped away. I kept staring at the front door, expecting to hear her key again, to hear her laugh at me for reading too much into things like I always do. But the key never turned. Instead, the street outside grew quiet, and that's when I noticed something new. Her red scarf missing from the coat rack. The same one she wore when she said she was too tired for dinner. That scarf was never about warmth. It was about attention. She wore it when she wanted someone to look at her. And apparently someone did. I didn't yell, didn't throw things. I just sat at the edge of the bed, listening to the clock tick through every second she wasn't there. It's strange how time stretches when your chest is hollow. How the smallest sound, the click of the heater, the hum of the fridge, becomes unbearable. By the time dawn crawled through the blinds, I'd already made my decision. If she wanted to be alone, she'd get exactly that. Not just for the night. For good. I didn't pack much. Just the essentials, a change of clothes, my headphones, and the small wooden box she never noticed I kept under the bed. It had all the things I once thought meant something. Old movie stubs, that drawing she made of me while I was asleep, the note she left in my laptop bag before my first big interview. "You've got this, we've got this." I folded it slowly and put it back, even though it felt like a lie now. I didn't leave a note. I wanted her to feel the emptiness the way I had, sudden, unexplained, and irreversible. But I made the bed before I left. She always said an unmade bed was a sign of chaos, and I didn't want her thinking I was angry. I wasn't. I was erased, like she'd quietly deleted me days ago and was just waiting for me to notice. I left my keys in the bowl by the door, just like I always had. The same sound, soft metal on ceramic, but this time it echoed. It's funny how that little noise marked both routine and ending. She didn't text me the next day, or the next. I stayed at a motel on the edge of town, the kind with flickering lights and vending machines that only accept exact change. It felt appropriately miserable. I didn't tell anyone where I was, not even my brother, not even my boss. I called in sick and lied about food poisoning, not because I couldn't work, but because I couldn't think. I kept refreshing our shared calendar like an idiot, watching her appointments tick by without me. Dinner with Lizette on Thursday. Book club on Saturday. But it was Friday night that broke me. Reserved rooftop sushi. That was supposed to be our date night. I'd planned it 2 weeks in advance. Even called the restaurant to request the table with the view. She never mentioned it. Never even acknowledged the reminder. She just let it slide off the calendar like it never mattered. So I did the only thing I could think of. I went. Alone. I wore the cologne she bought me last Christmas, the one she said made me smell like someone who belongs in a different life. I sat at the rooftop table, ordered her favorite roll, and waited. For nothing. But then something happened. At 8:42 p.m., a couple sat 2 tables down. I saw her. Not Alma. Someone else. But the man? He looked exactly like me. Same build, same haircut, even the same awkward laugh I used to hate about myself. She kissed him like I never existed. Except, it wasn't Alma doing the kissing. It was Lizette, her best friend. And suddenly, all those calendar entries made sense. I didn't mean to follow her. I swear I didn't. It just happened. The kind of accidental that only happens when your chest is hollow and your head won't stop replaying her last words. "I just want to be alone tonight." Those words rattled in my skull like a loose screw. I thought if I could see her face again, even from a distance, I'd finally understand what she really meant. So when I saw her car parked 2 blocks from the sushi place, engine off, lights dimmed, I stopped breathing. I parked across the street, kept the headlights off. I know how pathetic that sounds. The guy watching his girlfriend's car like a lost puppy. But I wasn't looking for drama. I just wanted clarity. Some proof that I wasn't losing my mind. She used to tell me I saw ghosts in daylight. Maybe I did. But that night, the ghost was very real. The passenger door opened. A man stepped out first, tall, gray jacket, confident in that lazy, careless way that comes from being used to attention. He looked familiar. Too familiar. And then she followed. Alma. Her hair tied up the way she only did for special occasions, not for alone nights. The same red scarf I'd noticed missing. I watched as she laughed, and it wasn't the laugh I knew. It was louder, freer, like I'd been the cage all along. They walked toward a small art gallery I didn't even know existed. She once told me she hated galleries. Pretentious, she'd said. A bunch of sad people pretending to understand colors. I remember that line because I used it in a joke once, and she laughed until she cried. But here she was, holding someone else's arm, smiling under dim lights, pretending to understand colors with him. I stayed in the car. Every second burned. My hands trembled so much I dropped my phone twice trying to open the camera. I couldn't even bring myself to take a picture. What was I going to do with it? Show her? Ask her why? She'd just twist it into something else. She always could. I hated how she had that power even now. After maybe 40 minutes, they came out. She was carrying a small painting wrapped in brown paper. He kissed her forehead before they walked back to her car. I could hear the faint hum of her laughter even through the glass. Then they drove away together, in my car. She'd taken mine because hers needed gas. That was the moment I stopped feeling sad and started feeling something else. Not anger exactly, just a cold, slow understanding that everything I'd thought we were had already ended days, maybe weeks ago. I wasn't part of her life anymore. I was an old memory she hadn't gotten around to deleting. When I got back to the motel, I stood in front of the mirror for nearly an hour. I didn't recognize the man staring back. His eyes looked older, smaller somehow, like life had shrunk him. I tried to picture what she saw in that other guy, but all I could think was how easy it must have been for her to replace me. And that's when the idea started forming. Not revenge, not confrontation, something quieter, sharper, something she wouldn't even see coming. If she wanted space, she was about to get more than she could ever imagine. The morning after the gallery, I did something I never thought I'd do. I took down the photo wall. Every couple has one. That section of hallway or bedroom where little memories hang like proof that things used to be good. Ours was above the desk. Dozens of snapshots, pinned crookedly with pushpins she never bothered to straighten. Us at the lake, her pretending to hate camping. Her birthday in the garden when it rained, and we ate cake in the shed. A blurry photo of our first apartment. The carpet was hideous, but we were happy. I didn't rip them down. That would have felt too loud. I removed each one carefully, sliding the pins out in silence. I stacked the photos inside a manila envelope and tucked it behind the radiator in the guest room. She'd never looked there. That room had always been my space, a place she called your little cave, with a smile that slowly disappeared over the last year. I started peeling myself out of her life, one invisible layer at a time. First, I disconnected my Spotify from our shared speaker. Then I logged out of our joint grocery app and turned off location sharing. She hadn't checked it in weeks anyway, but I wanted her to try one day and see that something was missing. I made copies of every important document and stored them on a flash drive. The lease, the bank records, the insurance we never talked about, but always meant to. It wasn't sabotage. It was survival. Quiet, clean survival. I didn't ghost her. I still replied when she texted. Brief, neutral answers that said everything and nothing. Her, need anything from the store? Me, all good. Her, be home late. Work ran over. Me, cool. It was weird how easy the lies came to her. But then again, maybe they weren't lies. Maybe I'd just stopped being someone she needed to tell the truth to. The first time she noticed something was off, she didn't say it outright. It was in her eyes, that flicker of discomfort when she walked into the apartment and found the lights dimmed, the kitchen spotless, no music playing. She stared at the blank space where the photo wall had been. I told her I was decluttering, and she nodded too fast, like she didn't believe me but didn't care enough to ask. Then came the Sunday dinner. She walked into the kitchen, confused, sniffing the air. No roast. I shrugged. Didn't think we were doing that anymore. She opened her mouth to say something, but nothing came out. She poured herself a glass of wine and sat across from me in silence. That was when I knew she'd started to feel the distance. But I didn't bridge it. I let it grow. I wanted her to feel the slow unraveling, the weight of absence pressing into the routines she once took for granted. I started sleeping on the couch, claiming I'd fallen asleep watching a documentary. I hadn't watched anything. I just lay there, eyes open, listening to the pipes and the soft murmur of her breathing through the wall. And every night, I wondered, how long would it take her to realize that the person she betrayed wasn't the one who left? She was the one who made leaving easy. She knocked on the bathroom door. That alone was weird. We never knocked. We just walked in, laughed, complained, shared toothpaste. But that night, she knocked. I'd been standing at the sink, toothbrush hanging from my mouth, watching the mirror fog over from the hot shower I didn't take. The knock startled me like a fire alarm. "You okay in there?" she asked, voice thinner than usual. No sass. No fake sweetness. "Yeah," I muttered, rinsing my mouth even though I hadn't brushed long enough. "Just tired." I opened the door, and she was standing there in one of my t-shirts, the navy one with the fading print that she used to say made me look almost hot. She hadn't worn it in months. She only pulled it out when she was trying to disarm me, to make things feel familiar again. But it didn't work. Not this time. She looked like she had something to say, but instead she stepped aside to let me pass. That was the first time I saw hesitation in her body. Her movements had always been sharp, confident, almost careless. But that night, her shoulders curled slightly inward. She wasn't sure how to be near me anymore. That made two of us. The next morning, she made pancakes. She only made pancakes when she wanted to fix something. I sat down at the table slowly. She was already seated, scrolling through her phone, pretending to be relaxed. There was a second mug of coffee next to mine. Oat milk, cinnamon, just the way I used to make it for her. The plate in front of me had 4 pancakes, butter melting perfectly on top. She'd even added strawberries. I didn't touch them. "Thought you'd be hungry," she said without looking up. "I'm good," I replied, and took a sip of black coffee instead. That's when she looked at me. Really looked at me. I could see the questions lining up in her eyes. Not the ones she wanted to ask out loud. The deeper ones, the ones that taste like fear. "Where have you gone? Why don't you fight me anymore? Are you leaving?" But she said none of them. She just nodded slowly, like she was reading a verdict she already knew was coming. Later that day, I unplugged the router and moved it into the closet. Why? Because I'd always been the one who reset the Wi-Fi when it glitched. I was the problem solver, the fixer, the guy who made things work even when they were broken. But now, I wanted her to feel that flicker of frustration when the connection dropped and no one came to fix it. I wanted her to sit in that silence and wonder what else she'd have to start figuring out alone. Then came the night she tried to kiss me. It was quick, hesitant. We were brushing past each other in the hallway, and her hand touched my arm. I stopped, expecting her to say something. Maybe a question, maybe even an apology. But instead, she leaned in and placed a soft kiss on my cheek. My body didn't move. My arms stayed at my sides. I didn't even blink. She stepped back slowly, eyes scanning mine like she was waiting for a response. I didn't give her one. And for the first time since I'd met her, Alma looked small. Not weak. Not broken. Just unsure. Like the house she lived in was shifting beneath her feet, and she wasn't wearing shoes. She opened her mouth, started to say my name, but I walked past her before she could finish. Because when someone says they want to be alone, you eventually learn to honor that, even when they start begging you not to. The first rail crack appeared when she couldn't find her passport. It was Tuesday evening. I was sitting on the couch pretending to scroll through job listings I had no intention of applying for, when she came out of the bedroom in a rush, rifling through drawers, tossing sweaters onto the floor. "Have you seen my passport?" she asked, not even looking at me. I waited a beat before answering. "Should be in your nightstand." She yanked open both drawers. "Nothing." She turned toward me, finally making eye contact. "It's not there. I haven't moved it." "You haven't moved it, have you?" I shrugged. "Maybe you moved it when you were packing for Lisbon." Her face twitched. "Not a lot. Just enough." She hadn't told me she was planning Lisbon again. Not this time. She stared at me for a second longer than necessary. "I never booked anything." I nodded. "I know." I watched as she turned away, slower now. Her steps were uncertain, like she was realizing I knew more than I let on, and had for longer than she thought. The thing is, I hadn't touched her passport. I didn't have to. I just remembered she once kept it in a red folder behind the books on the top shelf. The same shelf I dusted last week, after she'd forgotten my birthday for the second year in a row. The next few days felt like we were roommates acting out a script we didn't believe in anymore. She started staying home more, lighting candles, playing that lo-fi playlist she used to put on when we were still learning each other's silences. It wasn't romantic. It was desperate, and I think she knew it. She started asking me things like, "Do you still want to do Sunday dinners? And are we okay?" In that airy, too casual voice people use when they're hoping not to hear the answer. I never said no. I just didn't say yes. I left the questions to rot in the air between us, like fruit that looked perfect on the outside but was already bruised underneath. Then came the night I heard her crying in the shower. It was almost midnight. I was lying on the couch, pretending to sleep. The bathroom door was closed, the fan humming, but I could still hear it. The way she tried to swallow her sobs, the kind of crying that starts from the stomach and climbs up the throat like it's trying to escape the skin. I didn't go to her. Not because I didn't care, but because she never came to me when I needed her. There was a time I cried in that same shower, a panic attack after losing my job, the week my father went into the hospital. She'd knocked on the door, asked if I was okay, and when I didn't answer fast enough, she left. Took a phone call in the kitchen and laughed too loudly for someone who knew I was falling apart 20 feet away. So I let her have her tears. Let her sit in the mess she helped create. By the end of the week, she started noticing all the little things missing. My books from the office shelf. My guitar. The charger I kept on my side of the bed. The drawer that used to hold my socks now had nothing but dust and one of her hair ties. She didn't ask where I'd moved them. She didn't have to. She just stared at the empty spaces like she was watching the outline of someone who'd already gone. And in a way, she was. The morning she broke the silence, the sky was that dull gray that makes everything look washed out. Like even the sun didn't want to get involved. I was in the kitchen, sitting at the table with my laptop open, pretending to read an article I wasn't actually processing. I heard her pacing in the hallway, the soft slap of bare feet against hardwood, the kind of rhythm that belongs to someone rehearsing words they're afraid to say. Then she appeared in the doorway, hair messy, eyes puffy from another night. She thought I hadn't noticed she was awake. She didn't say good morning. She just stood there, gripping the doorframe like it was keeping her upright. "Ezra," she started, and that was the first time she'd said my name out loud in weeks. It sounded fragile, like she'd borrowed it and wasn't sure she had the right to use it. I didn't look up right away. I wanted her to feel what it was like to speak into the space between us and hear nothing come back. But curiosity got me eventually, and when I did meet her eyes, something flickered there that I hadn't seen in months. Fear. Not of me, but of what she'd done. "I think we need to talk," she said carefully, voice barely holding together. That line should have hit me like thunder, the classic prelude to every fake apology and half-truth I'd been waiting for. But it didn't. It landed flat, like a song I'd already heard too many times. I just nodded. "Okay." She took a step closer. "I don't know what's happening between us. I feel like you're gone, even when you're here." That part almost made me laugh. Gone, even when I'm here. The irony was brutal. She hadn't realized that was exactly how I'd felt for the last year. Watching her body sit across from me at dinner while her mind floated somewhere else entirely. Maybe with him. Maybe in some fantasy life where I wasn't the one sitting opposite her. "I'm still here," I said quietly, though we both knew it was a lie. She crossed the room, sat across from me, and started fiddling with the corner of the tablecloth like it could anchor her. "If I've done something, if I've made you pull away." I interrupted her. "You didn't make me pull away. You just stopped noticing when I did." That hit her harder than I expected. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came. She looked so lost, so out of place in the apartment she once ruled. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then she reached for my hand, slow, tentative, like touching a flame she already knew would burn, and I felt everything inside me go still. I didn't move. I didn't pull away, but I didn't close the distance either. We just stayed there, her hand halfway to mine, suspended between what we were and what we'd become. When she finally dropped it, I could almost hear the sound of something breaking, not loud, just a soft, tired fracture. She looked down, then forced a shaky laugh, the kind she used to cover pain she didn't want to admit was real. "I don't even know when it happened," she whispered. "I did. It happened the night she told me she needed space. It happened when she walked out and thought I wouldn't notice how easily she could." She sat there for a few more minutes, waiting for me to say something worth saving. But I didn't. There was nothing left to save. When she finally stood and walked toward the bedroom, she paused in the doorway, looked back once, and said quietly, "You've changed." Maybe I had. Or maybe I'd just stopped pretending I hadn't been broken first. That night, while she slept, I deleted every shared password we had. The streaming accounts, the utilities, even the calendar we used to plan our weekends. Each click felt cleaner than the last. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad anymore. I was just done. And in that strange, empty calm, I realized something terrifyingly peaceful. When she said she wanted to be alone, she had no idea what that actually meant. But she was about to find out. 2 weeks passed. No arguments. No tears. No slamming doors. Just silence. Clean, heavy, and permanent. We existed like shadows in the same apartment, moving past each other without sound, without reason. The truth had already been spoken, even if only in the pauses. And sometimes, that's all it takes. Not a fight. Not a confession. Just enough quiet to hear what's really there. Then, one morning, I woke up and knew it was the day. I made coffee, folded the blanket on the couch one last time. I walked into the bedroom while she was still asleep, took one long look, and something strange happened. I didn't feel bitterness, not even sadness. I felt clarity. For the first time in months, I didn't see her as the woman who betrayed me. I saw her as someone who didn't know how to love the way I needed. And that wasn't cruelty. That was just truth. I left the apartment key on the kitchen counter, next to a note. No accusations. No guilt. Just a single line. "You said you needed to be alone. I finally understand, and I forgive you." I didn't sign it. I didn't need to. The train ride out of the city felt like breathing for the first time in weeks. I didn't have a plan, didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stay where I had already been forgotten. I rented a small cabin 2 hours away, near a lake I used to visit as a kid. There was no Wi-Fi, barely any cell signal. Just wind, birds, and the occasional creak of trees shifting their weight. For a while, that was enough. Days turned into weeks. I relearned how to sleep through the night. I cooked for one and didn't feel lonely. I picked up my guitar again and found that my hands still remembered how to play, even when my heart didn't. And then one morning, while sipping coffee on the porch, I saw her name flash across my phone screen. A message. Short. "I read your note. I'm sorry." I stared at it for a long time. Not because I was unsure how to respond, but because I realized I didn't need to. Not anymore. Closure wasn't something she could give me. It was something I'd already given myself. Instead of replying, I placed the phone down, stood up, and walked to the edge of the lake. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting gold across the water. She had lost me, but I had finally found myself. And for the first time in a long time, that was more than enough.